Hey, welcome to What's the Story? My name is Janice Hermson, and I am your host. And today we're going to have a very special guest. As you see, Ed is not with me today. He is traveling, so he couldn't make the interview. And I know that he's going to be so jealous of me because he wasn't here. So I want to welcome to What's the Story, Lucas Cantor Santiago. Welcome to What's the Story.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, and Lucas is an author, but he's much more than an author, and usually that's our main gig. But today we're going to be talking a lot about music and AI and a number of different things. One little housekeeping thing that I do want to get out of the way, though, I want to remind everybody to let me just share my screen here, and I always have trouble with this. Anyway, hermson.substack.com. If you would subscribe, that would be awesome. LaRue Press has been around since 2000. That just tells you a little bit about our history. And we do announce different things that are coming up with the company as well as with our interviews. And this interview will be on Substack afterwards, if in case you have to take off, go do something, whatever. So anyway, hermson.substack.com. Please subscribe and, hit the like button if you do. All right. So, but now I want to have a great conversation with Lucas. Lucas, tell us about you. I was going to read your whole bio, but I think it would take up the whole show. So,
Well, thank you. I'm not great at talking about myself, but
uh-oh.
I will do my best. First of all, I want to say that I understand now, having written a book, why most people make it their full-time job. It is
Yes.
incredibly difficult, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I would say that it was almost entirely unpleasant, but I am very pleased with myself.
That's pretty funny.
Yes. But yeah, I am pleased with the result, and I'm glad I did it. And yeah, so I'm a composer, and my day job, I suppose, is writing music for television and film and concerts. What I tell people is that almost definitely you've definitely heard my music, but you probably didn't do it on purpose. Um, I scored the introduction to this past year's Super Bowl, the 2025 Super Bowl. And also to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So hundreds of millions of people saw that and heard that. And I have a lot of music and television, films, records, wherever. It's just kind of around, and you've likely heard it. But I like to think of myself as a blue collar composer. I show up to work, I write some music, I sell it, it goes somewhere. I help something out, and that's it. That's how I sort of treat it like any other job.
Wow.
Yeah, any other job that I'm passionate about it and I love it, but it's also what my profession is, right? So,
Right.
I got a degree in music tech in music in jazz guitar, and I then got a job sort of randomly working for the Olympics in their music department, and
Sort of randomly. Now that doesn't happen every day.
I'll tell you the story. I don't usually talk about this in interviews, but I got this job because I was a waiter at someone's wedding.
Oh, wow.
And I was just, I worked in the restaurant industry for 9 years, and I was just kind of an extra. Like I wasn't even really needed that day, but I just happened to be there, and so I was messing around with this guy had cameras that he was going to shoot his own wedding, and I knew the cameras that he was using pretty well because I had done some work with cameras before, and so I opened it up and set the date and time, which was a non-trivial thing to do on this particular camera. And he said, yeah, well, you obviously know this camera. Shoot during my ceremony, and if I like your stuff, I'll hire you. And so he hired me to do productions with him, and then he got a job on the Olympics, and he took me along with him. So,
Wow. Very cool.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
cool. Yeah. Right place, right time, right?
right place, right time. So,
That's
and
awesome.
right attitude, I guess. So I worked in sports television for a while, and then I started adding my own music to the shows that I was working on, and I realized that that I enjoyed the music part better. It was what my degree was in. I had access to a studio, and I was writing music, and I decided to move out to Hollywood and make a go of it. And this decision is detailed in the book. I had some help from some pretty notable people, but I got a job at Hans Zimmer Studio, which is in addition to being one of the greatest musical hives and greatest musical hubs in the world, it is also it is also a hub for technology. Hans Zimmer's music is known the world over and is amazing in its own right, but he has also pioneered the way that we make music. And by we, I mean every person who makes music. He really was at the forefront of creating the types of technology and utilizing the types of technology that we all use to make music today. And that was an unexpected lesson I learned when I moved to Los Angeles. Was that the thing that was, yeah, the thing that was holding me back was the technology. It wasn't the ideas.
Yeah, well, that all holds us all back sometimes.
Sorry, I think I misspoke, because the thing that was holding me back was lack of awareness of the technology.
Okay.
There was a
That's
lot of
fair.
technology that was available to me that I did not know to take advantage of. And one of the things I learned at Remote Control Productions was how to take advantage of that technology and leverage it in order to make music.
Yeah, and I think that that's often all of us is we don't know what we don't know, right? Until you
Mhm.
start working in it and doing what you do, then you kind of have to figure it out. But since you did talk about your book at the intro, I was going to kind of save this for the end, but I'd love to know about the process that you used. You know, we have a lot of authors that listen to our show, and especially somebody who's never written a book. I presume that's the case
Yes,
from
yes.
from what you said. And what was the process that you took to approach this? Because did you take the same process you would use with writing music, or how did you approach that?
Yes. So I approached it, and this is one of the reasons that my book is not coincidentally called "The Role of the Artist in the Age of Artificial Intelligence," because it's not just about the role of the musician. It's the role of anybody who tells stories and tries to communicate with people. And so I learned how to master things in music school. I learned that if you throw time and dedication and energy at something, you will suck at it for a while, and then eventually you won't suck at it. And that is true of writing as well. The process I used, and my mother is who I dedicated the book to both my mother and my wife, because they have been, obviously one's mother and one's wives are supposed to be pretty awesome. Indeed, they fill that
And you
role.
better do both.
Yes, well, my mom taught me how to write, and my wife enabled me to write this book. So both are pretty important for the
Nice,
creation of the
very
finished work.
nice.
But I had never attempted to write a book, but I had seen someone do it, so I knew that throwing time at it the same way that I threw time at music was as likely to work, as more likely to work than anything else. I didn't know if it would work, but for your listeners who are writers or aspiring writers, probably the best piece of advice that I got, and the thing that I actioned, was to really research, because for a nonfiction book, you need an agent. And so I really researched who would be a good agent for this book, and I spent a couple of days just doing that. And then I found Peter Ruby, who is a musician and an agent, and I wrote to him, and I wrote only to him, and he is now my agent.
Oh, wow.
So I did has been, and he's really championed this book and got it, from zero to a finished book. So having a good agent is really important, and you get a good agent with a good idea and a lot of persistence and like some really focused reaching out. But yeah, the process of writing it was just kind of throwing stuff. I mean, the book is, I don't know, 70,000 words. I wrote 250,000 and read 1,000,000.
How true. And
Yeah.
I wonder how many times you had to reread and edit and
Yeah, I
on
mean,
and on.
it's the proposal itself was 20 versions,
Oh
and
my.
and also 20 versions to get to something that does not resemble the book in the slightest. um, so,
That's
so
funny.
yeah, we ended up, and we sold it twice, actually. So I sold it, and when I did the deal with the first publisher, I said to them, look, if I get busy, I have to focus on my actual job, because I get paid more for an episode of
Right.
television than I will for this whole book. So, and that happened, and I blew my deadline, and they dropped the book. And so then, and at that time I had finished it. Like I had
Oh.
pretty much finished it, but they weren't interested. And so we had to reproposal the book based on the manuscript I'd already written. And so that's,
And it worked. And
yep,
it
and it
worked.
works.
Yeah,
Luckily,
that's
Bloomsbury
awesome.
picked it up, and they've been fantastic.
And the process of actually writing, the book itself, how long do you think that took? Was that like a
Uh,
year? Was that less than a
it
year?
was
2 years?
more than 2 years
Yeah.
of actually writing. I've been working on it since 2019, but it is older than one of my sons. Um, so yeah, I've been working on it for quite a while, but the process of actually writing, is fits and starts. But the best advice, I think sometimes the most obvious advice is the best. Stephen Marsh, who is an amazing author, writes for The Atlantic, has many books out. Wrote a book with AI, a murder mystery, which is really amazing. But I was lucky enough to do a panel and have dinner with him, and I just was sort of bemoaning the fact that I didn't feel like I was making progress on my book, and he said, "Well, you have to work on it every day," which is obvious advice that I should have known, and I just hearing it in that moment kind of changed my life. And I said, all right, fine. No matter what happens, I'm going to write 500 words a day. Maybe they'll be garbage. And that's what got me to the finish line, was that practice of just like, I'm going to work on this every day. I'm going to do something with it every day. And I think you get your head in it when you start to do that. Like, and you just,
Sure.
and the ideas start to congeal a little bit more. And I had already done all the research. So it was just a matter of getting it together.
Right.
And
Well,
that
and
was
I
the
think
advice. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that it's like going to work, right? I mean, you're always having to address the problems, the issues, the good things, the bad, and if you're doing that every day, then you're kind of forced
Yeah.
into that, right?
Yeah. So Janice, the reason I thought it was silly advice, and for me especially, was that like, if someone had asked me how do you get good at music, I would have given them the same advice. And I don't know why I didn't put together that it would be the same. But
Well,
yeah.
Uh, all right. So let's talk a bit about how you worked with AI. So and then I guess go from the beginning where why in the world did you decide to finish this symphony? Why in the world would anyone
Well,
want to do that?
from the beginning, 60,000 years ago, one of our ancestors made a flute out of a bone and started using it to make sounds. And eventually they started realizing that those sounds had a pleasing nature. And so I'm joking, of course, but my book does trace the history of music and technology from 60,000 years ago to the present. And you can't see from here, but it's quite short. It's not a big tome. It's a very simple story. But music and technology are and always have been inextricably linked together. So the idea that there is this thing called technology and this thing called music, and they are somehow at odds, is wrong. They are almost the same thing. They are expressions of human ideas that we use to tell stories and that we use to communicate. Writing is music technology. Instruments are music technology. And these technologies have evolved with us forever. And the one thing that has remained consistent is that masters need to master the medium of their time. So to be good at music, you need to be good at making music today. There are people who are specialists who focus on music of several hundred years ago. They are amazing musicians, but that's a different thing than what I do. And it's a different kind of art, and it's a different kind of practice. But to be good at music, to be a composer, to be relating to your audience today, you have to be working in the medium of your time. So that's something I've always that I learned when I started working at Hans Zimmer's studios, that like there are more sonic possibilities using technology than there are not using it, and that makes it a better medium for making music. So it seemed very natural to me when I was approached to finish Schubert's Unfinished Symphony with artificial intelligence to do a project with AI, because that was like the new technology at the time, and I had been using personal computers and the ever expanding arsenal of amazingly fast chips and growing sample libraries. I'd been using all this high technology for a while, and so why not use the next thing? And I was approached by a technologist that I knew to do this. So I haven't always thought, oh gee, I really think someone should finish Schubert's Unfinished Symphony. Scholars already have done this, and there's no right answer to this question of how would Schubert have finished his symphony. But I got involved with a technologist, Professor Mick Grierson, who connected us with Huawei, which is one of the biggest cell phone manufacturers. It was the biggest at the time. Now it's one of the biggest cell phone manufacturers in the world. They wanted to use their phone and his technology to showcase the power of their phone. And they wanted to finish Schubert's Unfinished Symphony, and they wanted to do it on their Mate 20 Pro phone. And they asked me to be involved because they realized that you can't just push a button and get a symphony. There is just so much more involved. And it's not because of any artistic reason. It's just that a symphony is not just the sounds in the air. It's not anything really. It's, I think of it as a thing that's written down. Most people think of it as something that you hear. Some people think of it as something that you show up to work and play. And it's different for everybody. So I was intrigued by the idea, and I did it. We performed it. We performed it at Cadogan Hall. It continues to be performed around the world. I own the score, in as much as you can own a score like this, and I rent it out. People still play it, but I wasn't really, like, at the time. I just kind of did it. It was a job, and I did it, and I didn't think about the implications of it until later, and I didn't think about what I had learned and the problems I'd had to solve, and that's why I wrote the book. Was that it started me down this path of thinking, like, what is an artist supposed to do in the face of changing technology and in the face of new tools? And, if you've learned on one set of tools, is it your responsibility to learn new ones, or do you try to tell new stories in old ways, or old stories in new ways? And these are the types of things that I was thinking about. And the thing I kept coming back to was, what even is music? Like, what is it that I actually do? And I had the luxury of never having to think about that before, because it was what humans did, and it was self-evident that I would always be the person to do it. So that's where the book came from. It's really just an idea of, like, what the artist needs to do in the age of artificial intelligence is really understand what their craft is and what they bring to it and what they are trying to communicate to an audience, and then how they can use the tools that are available to them to accomplish those goals.
So in that process of doing that and creating this symphony, how did you use AI? So for instance, when I'm doing something with marketing, I'll go to AI and I'll get different data, different information. That's a whole lot different than music, though. So how did
It's
you?
not much different. I mean,
No.
yeah, it's so we used a sort of last generation AI tech. We used a long short-term memory model, and we trained it on all the melodies of Schubert that we could pull out of his canon, and then we prompted it with the first two movements of the Unfinished Symphony, and we saw what it delivered. And it suggested many different melodies. I chose some. I put them in a context that I thought was appropriate for the time and for the style, and then I used some symphonic techniques that would have been common to Schubert, like reprising melodies from the first movement and the third movement, and all these types of what they would have called organic unity techniques to sort of make it feel like a cohesive whole. And it was really that simple. It's not a today the technology to make music is a lot more sophisticated. I don't know if it's much better, but it is certainly more sophisticated and it is more robust.
Right.
But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I really felt like I was collaborating with a machine, because I had the ability to say, oh yeah, I don't really like that melody. Why don't you tell me something? Why don't you give me another one, but with the same parameters? And it would just iterate and iterate and iterate. And
so you did sort of feel like you were having a conversation? Because a lot of people are really interacting with AI in very odd ways.
Yeah, it wasn't like the way that you can have a conversation in quotes with ChatGPT. It was
right.
It was more like the way I thought of it at the time was that there's this practice from the middle of the 20th century called serial music, where composers would literally roll 12-sided die to decide what note would come next. So they would get this sheer randomness, and they could put transforms on it and make it sort of a controlled randomness. But the result is, apologies to serial musicians, but the result is largely unlistenable. It is very chaotic and very random, and tells a story that I'm not particularly interested in. But the idea of using this sort of ability to generate melodies is interesting to me. And with artificial intelligence, you can cycle through these generations very, very quickly. So, when we were working on this, every once in a while it would come back with a melody that sounded like a cat walking on a piano. But I didn't have to spend 20 minutes to get to there. I could just listen to it and say like, okay, great, that's not good. Change it in these ways, constrain it in these ways. And then I would get, very quickly get to something that was iterative and almost serial music. It was created like serial music, but it sounded beautiful. And it sounded like, and sounded melodic. So that's what I thought was interesting, was taking this 20th century practice and bringing it into the 21st century and actually making it sound like the 19th century.
So to those musicians, and I have spoken to a few of them who are wary of how AI is going to affect the industry, you don't seem to have any concerns about that.
I have concerns. You know, it's an open-ended question, and we are trained by the big AI evangelists to ask big questions because they don't have answers, and that allows everybody to continue to fundraise. But if you start to ask very specific questions, which are really the only ones that matter, you realize very quickly that this technology is pretty useful, but not necessarily as world-changing as we're led to believe.
I would agree with that.
The example that I like to think of, because everybody knows, everybody uses ChatGPT or Claude or something as, functionally enhanced
Grok.
search.
Yeah.
Grok, yeah, whatever you like. It's functionally enhanced search. And that is a great use. It is, what I use it for, the research that I use it for is, it's really valuable. And it is about as important to me as maybe Microsoft Excel, where I would not want to run my business without it. But if it cost more than about $100 a year, I'd find a different solution.
Right.
And it's not like, and I think that the LLMs and the GPT models right now are really amazing solutions to technical problems. Their use case is still a question mark.
Right.
And whether or not that use case can support the valuations of these companies is really a question mark. They are useful. I think that the use case is not a question mark. It's, will the use case support the valuation is the question mark.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about your book and give our audience a little bit of insight into, when they pick it up and what is their expectation? What do you want them to gain from reading Unfinished?
Well, let me answer that, but I don't think I answered your last question, which is to your musician friend who is
Right.
worried about, I sort of danced around it, but think specifically about what you do and think about what it is that is important and beautiful and special about what you do. And that's the thing that's going to remain the same. And then think about how you can use technology to enhance that. That's the answer. Some ways of making money might be affected by artificial intelligence, but these types of things are always affected by technology. This is just the game we play.
It's the process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the process. So, all right. So, what can readers expect when they pick up my book? I try to, in an entertaining way, tell the story of the history of music and the history of technology and why it's meaningful to us, what makes it meaningful. And there's some stories of particular musicians, particular artists that you may not have heard of and made really interesting contributions and have done really interesting things. Oh, it's #1 in new releases.
There you go.
All right, I'll take it.
That's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
I saw that yesterday, so I thought I'd flash that on the screen too.
Thank you. All right, keep it going. Run it up the flagpole.
There you go. Yep.
I've tried. I think the most important thing to let prospective readers know is you do not have to know anything about music to appreciate and understand this book. And I worked very hard to make that the case. There are some musical concepts in there that I explain in plain language that requires no prior understanding. But most of it is my thoughts on what it means to be an artist in this age of technology and what is important about the arts and what we need to take away from our practices and what we need to take with us into the 21st century from the practices that we established in the 20th century and in the many centuries before that.
And I will say a little bit of what I've taken from it so far is also some of the background about AI and how it has been used for a long time, and we may not have recognized that. So very interesting.
AI is a marketing term above all else. And, people have been, the term electronic brain appears in the New York Times in the 1890s.
Wow.
People have been worried about this forever. When we started using computers like the ENIAC and the Manchester Mark II, these computers were, people thought, and these were computers that these were basically calculators. Like that's all they did
Sure.
was,
Yeah.
give it two numbers and give you a third. And they were amazing capabilities at the time, but people thought, well, with this capability in 10 years, it's going to be thinking and taking over the world. And we've been saying that for almost a century, and
Yeah.
we are no closer to it than we were a century ago. So, when you, this is not really in the book, but just, listen to what the people who promote this stuff are saying, and then try to reverse engineer what their incentives might be.
There you go.
Because there are people who make money off of AI hype.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Of course. Lucas, I would talk to you for another half hour easily, but I was told you have another interview coming up, so I got to let you go.
It would have been my pleasure, but it was a pleasure to get the time that we had. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for being with me and being on What's the Story. And don't forget, go get Unfinished and read it. Read it. Read it. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lucas.
I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And you are listening to What's the Story? I'm Janice Hermson. I'm your host, and I'm here every week. So be sure to check us out at hermson.substack.com. Get subscribed and learn more about us.